As part of my emerging technologies course that I'm teaching as an adjunct professor for Master of Global Management students, I had the unique privilege of reviewing 40 articles, podcasts, and videos for an assignment reflecting perspectives on DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. After reading all of these submissions, which came from students representing 10 countries and a wide array of life experiences, I was inspired to share my own take. Because right now, this particular topic sits in the center of one of the most polarized moments in our political and cultural landscape. When an authoritarian right-wing administration attacks democracy and is not following the U.S. Constitution and is dismantling or undermining institutional checks, efforts to support more diversity, equity, and inclusiveness are seen as a threat, so it becomes a target. Not because the idea itself is flawed, but because it represents change. And change often makes people uncomfortable, especially when it challenges long-held power structures. Let's start with the part that almost no one disputes: the business case. A study by McKinsey & Company, a global management consulting firm, found that companies in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. This finding is widely recognized across business and academic literature as concrete evidence of DEI's impact on profitability. Sure, this can always be fine-tuned and improved, but the fact remains that diversity, more equity, and inclusive cultures deliver. Besides, the world is not getting less diverse. Changing demographic trends show that cultures, ethnic groups, religious organizations, or races who historically were in power are losing that position. Some are hanging on for dear life to old ways and resisting change rather than embracing the change that is inevitable. A better approach is to learn about different cultures, gain more understanding, and find ways to connect and build relationships. Having diverse teams results in better decisions. This is because they more closely reflect and represent the market and community demographics, recognize broader customer preferences, catch blind spots, and bring ideas that simply don't surface in homogeneous groups. When you look across industries like tech, entertainment, finance, the companies that innovate fastest tend to be the ones with diverse voices at the table. This isn't about ideology. It's about performance. Diversity sharpens thinking. It expands market reach. It reduces risk. Today, with the current administration in the U.S., the conversation has become political, not practical. Those three letters, DEI, have been turned into something they were never meant to be. They've become a trigger, a political football. Rather than fight it, many organizations simply rebrand these efforts as belonging, people and culture, inclusive excellence, or workplace equity. But it's really the same vision using different terms, and they are simply adapting to the political climate, waiting for it to pass. When administrations change, when donor bases shift, when regulation swings one way or the other, big companies adjust. They're trying to not alienate their employees or customers while at the same time trying to be supportive of new policies or narratives, even if they don't agree with them. Rather than having a confrontation, many organizations will do things to avoid backlash, and they don't want to jeopardize favorable policies, relationships, or funding. It's a challenge for those who want to keep moving forward and progressing. When things like inclusion become controversial, leadership becomes cautious. They don't speak out as much. They don't strive for more diversity. They just try to get through this point in time. In fact, that's one of the symptoms of fascism spreading fear and chaos through authoritarian governments. So this is the time we need to make our voices heard and not be silenced. And situations surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusiveness mean different things to different people. Individuals, companies, and cultures are at different levels of maturity on these topics. There is no one-size-fits-all approach, and that's okay. That's why we have trained professionals who research, study, and create programs in order to meet organizations where they're at, then nudge the conversation forward, teaching, listening, adjusting, creating environments where people can grow into their work and be respected. That's the real human side of it all. Empathy mixed with a dose of accountability. President Barack Obama once said in a speech at Rutgers State University of New Jersey, "America's progress has never been smooth or steady. Progress doesn't travel in a straight line. It zigs and zags in fits and starts. Progress in America has been hard and contentious, and sometimes bloody. It remains uneven. And at times, for every 2 steps forward, it feels like we take 1 step back." And that's how I see things right now. It's cyclical. It advances, then retreats. It gains momentum, then becomes politicized. But despite the resistance, the long arc always trends upward. This is a fact. This is the science. It gives us hope. Fundamentally, the vast majority of people want fairness. They want access, opportunity, and dignity. Those aren't partisan values, they're human values. I can't say this for the billionaires who cling to their fortunes and the glare of attention. I wonder how anyone can feel any kind of fulfillment while holding so much that could lift others up. Anyhow, so what about the alternative? Let's say we just leave it to organizations to do what they want and reject any kind of diversity, equity, or inclusiveness. They can build a company that hires only people who look like them, think like them, agree with them. In essence, they create their own echo chamber. But sameness is the enemy of innovation. In a global economy, especially one driven by AI, data, and cultural nuance, narrow thinking is the quickest path to irrelevance. And most people don't want exclusion. They want fairness and connection. Let's talk about how we got here in the first place and why we even should be thinking about being intentional about diversity or equity or making sure people feel like they belong. Well, not everyone starts out in life at the same point. Having a quality education, good health care, a safe environment, or inheriting any kind of generational wealth varies greatly. But those inequalities didn't appear randomly. They were engineered intentionally or subconsciously through centuries of policy decisions, cultural norms, religious doctrine, colonization, and systemic structures. And today, since many of the inaccurate stories and narratives of the past have been exposed, explained, and amplified, the responsible thing to do is to evolve and ensure that future generations don't have to deal with things like racism or aggression and discrimination toward people of color, women's rights, LGBTQ, and other marginalized groups. We're supposed to be getting more civilized, not less. If we care about democracy, which is the people's will, and the Constitution of the United States, which ensures that that will doesn't violate an individual's fundamental rights, then we have to care about equality and strive toward enabling everyone to have a place to live with access to affordable health care, a good education, and the opportunity to work and build a successful career. After all, a truly successful society is defined not by its wealth or the success of a few, but by how little poverty, illness, and ignorance it allows to endure. It's about awareness, and it's about responsibility. And then there are those who say, don't worry, leave it to the churches to take care of the poor. First off, in the United States of America, we have separation of church and state. This means government stays neutral in matters of religion, and religion has no authority over government. Therefore, any religious institution has no business fixing structural inequality. This needs to happen by elected officials in the government. And yes, faith has the power to inspire good and build community, but some religious individuals don't pursue learning or scientific inquiry. Rather than explore knowledge for themselves, many choose to be guided by doctrines that ignore or distort much of humanity's history. It's a comfortable shortcut, but one that fosters intellectual complacency and stifles critical thinking. In addition, history shows us how religion has been used to divide, justify oppression, wage wars, and abuse children, women, and indigenous people. Just study colonization and the fact that every major religious tradition had extremist periods depending on who held power and what goals they pursued. I don't see this as moving us forward, it just divides us. When it comes to shaping a more equitable society, we need science, reason, data, empathy, and love. Just hoping things get better isn't enough. We need to put systems in place that are enforceable. Casting a vote is only the first step in protecting democracy. The rest comes from staying informed, speaking out, defending rights, attending rallies or marches, writing to your congresspeople, and working together to strengthen our institutions. So at the moment, we may see some previously undisputed and established terms like diversity, equity, and inclusion changing to things like belonging and workplace equity. But the debate isn't really about the name. After all, we're already a diverse country in many ways, but not in all communities. And we're certainly not equitable. There is a vast disparity in wealth and poor access to education and good health care. We have work to do in many communities to be inclusive and to create more equal opportunities. This lifts up the entire country. And despite the current environment, the upward trend toward progress is positive because, as I mentioned earlier, as much as we'd like it to be, progress isn't linear. We just have to know that with perseverance, we can get to a better place that is more fair with opportunities, with dignity and love. So those are my thoughts. I was inspired after reading these 40 perspectives with cited sources, and it helped me organize, articulate, and validate my own experiences, both personally and professionally. Knowing it's possible and being an optimist, that's what keeps me energized. I hope my energy resonates with others who share this vision and becomes even more powerful through collective momentum. Thanks for listening.